Earlier this fall, a friend who might be in this room offered to take me to play bingo. And I was thrilled at the idea. I have something of a history with bingo. When I was living in New York City and I became ill, I spent some time in the hospital, and bingo was one of our keep 'em busy activities. And I loved it. I loved bingo. Of course, there were no high stakes, and I wasn't technically paying to play. I think they considered it occupational therapy. I'm not sure, but I loved it. So anyway, even while dealing with some of my own interpersonal issues of competition, I really enjoyed playing bingo, and I hadn't played it since that time, and it was a really long time ago. So when the invitation came, I was like, yes, I want to go play bingo. So let me give you a little history of bingo, which I just learned. Bingo was first organized in Italy in 1530. And then in 1778, it showed up in France as a game for the intelligentsia. And then in Germany, it was established in the 1850s, designed to teach children their multiplication tables. Now, the game as we know it was reached North America in 1929, and it was called Beano, which is now known as something else. So I found that going to play bingo was very similar to going into a new spiritual center or church or classroom or any place that has rituals and rules and ways of doing things that I may or may not be totally familiar with. There are areas to sit, and regulars have their spot, and one of the 10 Commandments is, do not ever sit in a regular spot. Just don't do it. Some like to be near the bathroom, some like to be near the food, some want to be in the center, some come in a group. Everybody's got their thing. And then there are TV monitor screens everywhere, so it doesn't really matter where you sit. There's like no bad seat in the house. And then the decision of how many sheets to get. So each round has a color-coded sheet, and there are 6 game sheets on each square. 6 game squares on each sheet. Now, for someone like me, that means a lot of focus and attention. So they call the number, and I'm like, okay, I'm scanning. And like some people get 4 or 5 sheets for each game. You know, they'll just have them laid out, and they've got their little thing, and they're, that was way too much for me. So we got 2 sheets per game, which was just perfect. So here was the best part. Because I was a newbie, I got the newbie bag. I got the newbie bag, and the newbie bag had all kinds of coupons and information, and this incredible nifty keychain, which reminds me to be 15, which I constantly am, and my own personal dauber. Wow! I know, I felt so initiated, and most importantly, I felt welcomed. And so the bag also included the house rules, a paper explaining the house rules. And there were 3 that actually seemed to be very metaphorical for life. One of them was, when you bingo, and yes, it's a verb, to bingo. When you bingo, you must yell bingo loudly enough to stop the game. If you are not heard, it's your responsibility to notify the staff immediately before another number is called. So for the meek or the polite, playing bingo is a personal stretch. This one I love. The numbers on the monitor are not valid until they are called by the caller. So this is how it happens. The number comes up on the monitor a few moments before it's actually called. And so for those of us who are hyper-vigilant, high-achiever OCD people, we're like, oh, there's the new number. Check, and then you're done. However, you cannot yell bingo until that number has been officially called. So like you have a few moments when the number comes up to daub and then chat, and then the caller calls the number. This rule teaches us not to jump to conclusions or to make assumptions. Yes, we see the number. Yes, we daubed the number. But until it is called into reality, it's not true. Right? I know, it's deep. And then this last one, the bingo blower machine, which I just love saying. The bingo blower machine will not be turned off until a bingo has been verified. So the game isn't over until it's verified. So there's always a chance that someone made an error. So don't give up. Don't give up. Okay, so the other thing that I really liked about the environment was that it was non-smoking, it was non-alcoholic, it's a community event, it's a place where all different members of humanity and cultures and backgrounds can gather to play a game together. Now, I do have to address one issue that was brought to my attention this week, and so I will address it briefly. As much as I love bingo and as much as I love the concept of community that it brings to mind, there's a darker side to this. There are many people who get lost in the experience of bingo and can lose their lives. They lose their houses, they lose their families, they lose everything. And because it can become an addiction and it can cause great damage in people's lives. And so this seemed to me that was a very sad thing. That was a very sad thing to discover. And the other dark piece of this was when I was searching on Google for all things bingo, I was disturbed to find some really misogynistic, xenophobic, hateful images and jokes referencing bingo, and most of them were showing up on sites that were supposedly Christian. And I was like, whoa. Isn't that an interesting conflict? And so I kind of sat with that, and I thought, okay, well, I guess there's a dark side to everything, which, this Pollyanna hippie chick doesn't like to admit ever. So, and I guess the thing for me when it came to that, when it came to this darker side and the addiction side, was that too much of anything can become a problem, unless you can see that thing for what it is. And so I'm going to begin looking at bingo from both sides, the light and the dark, and how to see bingo as more of a positive thing. So I see bingo, personally, as an opportunity to gather, to come together, to laugh, to talk, to share time. And so I think the first spiritual lesson of bingo for me is this: begin inward, now grow outward. It's bingo. Isn't that cool? Yeah. So when we're doing life from the inside out, when we're doing life awake and conscious, there seems to be less of a chance to fall into traps. We can live our lives transparently, meaning that we can actually see what's happening. And we can see that this is the matrix, and that the real life is what's happening behind all the illusions. And so often when I talk with folks who are challenged by addictions, there is a sense of unconsciousness before they realize what's happening. There's a sense of unconscious happening, denial, blaming. And I mean, I hear myself do it as well. It's like, well, I had a really bad day, so I deserve to eat this quart of ice cream.
Oh, yeah.
Really? It's okay for me to abuse my body because I had a bad day? That's not really going to help. And it's interesting, just a few days ago, I went with a friend to an AA meeting, and I've never drank in my life, but I've always gone with friends to AA meetings, and I'm always so inspired by these experiences, these stories, these people who are walking and living so bravely, and they're just doing it, one day at a time, one moment at a time, and they're seeking to move past this darkness to live a life of light. And so with all journeys of this kind, truly, it's an inside job. We have to start inside before we can grow outwardly and see that change. And so when we begin from that inward, when we begin from that truth of our being and the real self of who we are, we can't help but grow outwardly because we aren't asleep anymore. We can certainly fall back asleep and eat a quart of ice cream. We can do that, and I do it. However, the thing is, once we're awakened, it's not as easy to stay asleep anymore. We can fall asleep, but we don't stay there. All of that being said, I never judge anybody. All of that being said, my goal is to not judge anybody for where they are or how they live. Bingo is a fun way to connect. And so I pray for the wisdom and the safety for those who struggle with the dark side of the experience, that they can see what it really is about and find that joy. So the next spiritual piece of this evening that I spent with my friend is the next piece of the bingo adventure. Bring in new guests often. Once my friend and I settled in, I looked around the room and I saw that there were a handful of other folks with yellow newbie bags. And I was like, oh, I'm not alone. Look at, there's other newbies. And as the evening progressed, I realized this is a great place to bring friends for a fun evening, or even, dare I say it, a date night. The pace of the game moves so slowly that there's ample time for talking, for sharing, for eating, for laughing, and tons of non-judgmental people watching, just kind of taken in the room. You've got plenty of time. And there were people of all ages and all abilities, and they were all connecting. And I was truly inspired to return. I want to go back. I want to bring new people with me. I'm like, come on, I found this thing. Come play bingo with me. We can make it a girls' night or just an alternative to the same old, I don't know. I don't have a social life. So whatever people do, whatever, I guess they go to movies. I don't know. But this could be an alternative. So bring in guests often. And then the next spiritual lesson that I will share is this one. Being immature never gets old. I love that picture. That picture makes me happy. There's a childlike feeling to playing bingo. It's so much fun. It's such a simple game. The number comes up, you look down. If you see it, you go, and then you're like, that's it. That's it. It's not challenging. And they also have electronic monitors if you're dauber challenged. You can have like electronic keyboard and do it with your hand, with your finger. And so it's like such a simple game, and it allows me to be free of everything. I don't have to think about anything. I can put my little competitive side away, which actually is not that hard to do in bingo because there's so many people in the room. It's like, why bother competing? I'm going to win or I'm not going to. Meanwhile, I look for my little numbers. And it's like, oh my God, I can just be. I can just be. What a concept. To just be focused on one thing and enjoying myself doing it. And to allow that like silliness, that childlike silliness to come up. And when people have birthdays, there's this guy who works there who's got this gorgeous like Broadway voice. And he will sing happy birthday to you over the microphone. And everybody just kind of, oh. I'm like, I want to go there on my birthday. I want to just lie and tell them it's my birthday. They won't know. And so for a few hours, I can just have silly fun. So there's so many other ways that bingo can be a spiritual practice because it requires patience. You see the number, you daub the number, you wait for the caller to call the number. And you never know. It could be bingo or it could be somebody across the room. So it requires patience. It requires being in that not knowing place. It requires trust in your caller and paying attention, especially if you have like 12 sheets in front of you. But everything I need is right there. I have all the information I need. I have all the tools I need. I get to just relax. And I can surrender. The caller is going to let me know what I need in each individual moment. When I hear the call, I check. And I acknowledge if I have what I need. And if I don't have what the caller wants from me, the moment passes. And I can have an onion ring. So waiting is all part of playing the game. And so there's no other moment than the now we're living in, right? I mean, this is it. And so there's a lot of in between the now of the moment of the call. There's a lot of space. We've daubed, we're waiting. And I think a lot of people, I don't know, other people might think of that as like, come on, make the call. Come on. What's the next number? Like they could waste that time. And instead, I think those times in between are so valuable. Those are the times where the conversations happen. Those are the times when the connection's made. That's when the real seeing happens. It's those moments in between. And so I found this quote. It has absolutely nothing to do with bingo, from Father Alfred de Souza, but it seemed to connect even though it wasn't about bingo. And he says, for a long time, it had seemed to me that life was about to begin, real life. But there was always some obstacle in the way, something to be got through first, some unfinished business, time still to be served, a debt to be paid. Then life would begin. At last it dawned on me that these obstacles were my life. Yeah. The moments in between are not moments in between. They're moments. They're moments to be cherished. They're moments to be enjoyed. So I also wanted to share, there's this very funny thing I found. So from bingo-related news, there's a group called the Dominican Sisters of Peace. And the Dominican Associates of Peace actually come in all sizes, shapes, ages, geographic origins, marital statuses, life experiences, and political allegiances. So to find a game that all of the Dominican Associates of Peace could enjoy was very difficult. However, they created one. The National Catholic Social Justice Lobby created State of the Union Bingo Pope Francis Edition. It is a bingo card with 25 squares, each containing a phrase taken from Pope Francis's book, The Joy of the Gospel. Here's how you do it. You listen to the President's State of the Union address, and you have a little pre-cut bingo chip with Pope Francis's face on it. And it's placed on a square whenever the Pope's book has been quoted or an intent is inferred. You can put it on the space. So apparently in his 2013 speech, the President gave a speech on income inequality, and he quoted The Joy of the Gospel. So these folks were like, what a great idea. So they were hoping that there would be more quotes coming up. And then they expanded it to any politician. Any political speech going on, you can play the Pope Francis edition of bingo, State of the Union bingo. And so they claim, this is their quote, the Dominican Sisters of Peace said, the bingo game could be a strategy to use as we listen and read the daily news with attention to the gospel message. It might assist us in forming opinions and personal actions based on the confluence of spiritual and secular realities. Spiritual conversion supersedes political allegiances and dictates that we be informed, listen to all points of view in light of the gospel, and then live with zeal for justice and peace. You've got the Pope, bingo, and peace all coming together. It's remarkable. I love this dude. So anyway, in closing, this is the last perspective that I came to on bingo that pulls it all together. Belonging. Bingo provides a sense of community. Friends sharing time, sharing laughter, sharing connection and conversation. Integration. Facing the dark side of bingo and working towards helping those who might need support. Now. Patience, waiting, letting ourselves be present with the moment, and listening for the call. Give. Tudor Bingo, I was surprised and happy to find out, supports many local charities, and in the past 21 years has distributed over $23 million back into this community. Wow. Right. And opportunity to connect, to support, to experience something new, to be with new and different people, to rekindle our childlike flame. To me, that sounds like a fun night. Let's pray. Oh, so taking the joy of that idea of waiting for the call, listening for the call and hearing that message that we need to hear from Spirit that makes us say, yes, that's the number I've been waiting for. Bingo, God. To celebrate our friendships, to celebrate community, to find surprising ways to give back, to learn how to be patient, to lean into that not knowing, and yet to know with a capital K, know that these illusions that we see around us that pull us in every direction are here for us to grow. They're here for us to figure out how to live better, how to see past, how to connect. And I think that's the bottom line. This metaphor of bingo is just another way to connect with other people. To see past the judgments and the appearance that we create of the other, and to realize that we are the other and there is no other because we're all one. And so I take time right now to just hold in prayer so many who have reached out this week with physical challenges, with family members who have physical challenges, with anger about what's happening around them, frustration because they can't seem to fix it. And I hold these feelings and these frustrations and these confusions, I hold them in prayer because I know that God has this all figured out already. And us getting to that place of figuring it out with God's mind, not our mind, with the mind of Spirit, with that larger mind, with that big, giant creative mind, that's what we're working towards. That's what will lift us up. So for anyone who is tired of carrying that weight, I invite you to put it into the stone and let it go. If not for forever, let's just do it for today. Let's just do it for today. So grateful for knowing the truth. Amen. Ashe.